about the Signal text leak from the Trump administration. This video is specifically addressed to conservatives, and I want to address gaslighting that you need to be aware of. So, let's start with the type of coverage that you can expect. If Joe Biden had done this, this would be all over every single right-wing media channel the instant that it got out. But this is not Joe Biden, this is Trump. So you're going to see a lot of people dragging their feet. What's important about that to recognize is this is further proof that you have been lied to, you've been manipulated. These people have gotten you riled up about things that they care nothing about. You may generally care about it, but they do not. They don't care about breaches of security. They don't care about our government being sloppy. None of this stuff matters. They pretend to care to get you riled up, to get more engagement so they can make more money. Proof of that is in them not jumping on the story right away. Next thing to consider. Most of right-wing media are not going to cover this. But this is a huge story, so you're going to see a lot of liberal media talking about it, left-wing media. And the longer that the left and liberals talk about any story, it's going to force a lot of these clowns out of hiding. Some of them are waiting for some right-wing propagandists to come up with some kind of a spin story that they can just repeat. So if somebody comes up with some kind of alternate narrative that somehow Joe Biden did the same thing or whatever it is, if that happens, then you'll see more of them coming out and saying, oh, Joe Biden, whatever. But until then, they're perfectly comfortable hiding this from you because they know a lot of their audience don't watch liberal media. They're in their little bubble. So if you as a right-wing media guy don't talk about it, they may never know about this and many other things. But I want you to take note of who talks about it first. Who might have talked about it already. These are going to be some of the worst and most dishonest people. Whenever something like this happens that is very bad for the right, for the Republican Party, the most dishonest actors are the ones who will actually talk about it because they don't have any morals whatsoever. They don't have any sense of just anything, just soulless vessels. So it doesn't matter how bad it is and how much evidence there is to back it up about something that Trump did or the Republican Party did. They don't care. They will get out here and say the most ridiculous things. Oh, it's not their fault, and actually Joe Biden did it, and actually it's a setup and it's a conspiracy. So keep track of who are the ones who talk about this first, right? The ones that take a little bit longer, not that they're honest people, but they're not quite as dishonest as the ones who will talk about it first. The ones who drag their feet, they would like, maybe having some company. It's kind of like a lot of right-wing channels are saying some alternate narrative, and it's kind of like, okay, let me jump in. But they're hesitant to be the ones to first talk about it. And also, a lot of them are eager for some other story to come out. So, and I'm sure, Trump and his team are aware of this. So look out for some kind of new scandal, for Trump to say something completely wild, and watch all of these establishment folks like Crowder, Shapiro, Tim Pool, watch them all do what the establishment wants, which is to distract you with whatever nonsense, right? Another thing, I want you to listen very closely to who talk about this, and I want you to take note of some gaslighting tactics, right? you're going to see people on the right. They're going to talk about and try to make the discussion about how this person was added to the list, right? That's the conversation. This is a trick, right? This is a trick. This is a manipulation trick. They are trying to fool you, right? What happened, like the guy getting on the list is secondary, might even be tertiary, right? That is not what the story is about. That is not the biggest deal about someone getting added to the list, right? That is an attempt to fool you, right? That someone was added by accident is not the biggest deal. The biggest deal is that they were having this conversation at all, right? Like, let's remove adding the journalist to it. Let's say they didn't do that, right? If you remove that, it's still really, really bad. In fact, the worst parts of this are still true, right? Here's the problem. You had, I believe, Tulsi Gabbard was on the chat, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And she's like the intelligence head. And then you had, Mr. Fox News, Pete Hegseth on there. Speaking as a person who went through the briefings, right, about national security and classification and how to protect our nation's secrets as a low level guy, right? I was a low level guy. I was on the bottom, right? I went through the training, right, about secrets. For the Secretary of Defense to so callously and irresponsibly just ignore fundamental rules and procedures about protecting our information. That is the biggest story. Because if he was so sloppy with this, putting our troops at risk, I mean, you could talk about the example he's setting. This is the leader, right? This is the leader, right? How are you, as a person who works in the federal government, you are an intelligence guy, you are a military person, and you see the Secretary of Defense just completely betraying just the most fundamental rules of how you handle, classified information? Like, what messages does that send? What is the effect on the people, right? How are you going to get the troops and our intelligence agents to take these things seriously if the guy at the top doesn't do it? So what is the impact? How many other people who, maybe they're on the fence, there's always people who don't want to follow rules, right? How many of them were on the fence and before they would have done the right thing, but in that moment, when they have a decision to make about following the procedures or just doing what they want to do, that they'll decide to do what they want to do because they'll be like, listen, like the Secretary of Defense, like if they didn't care, why should I care? Right? I mean, it matters, what your leadership does. The example, they say lead by example. The example that our leaders set is operational security doesn't matter, right? How all these rules about, you're supposed to use certain servers and all the protocol, like whatever. How many of our troops are going to get killed because of sloppy leadership like this? Remember what happened in Afghanistan, the exit, and people talked about how bad it was, and it was in terms of people want to make it political as Joe Biden, and ultimately he was a commander in chief. But it was the brass who came up with strategy and how they're going to do things, and I understand, the politicians can give you a tight guideline, and make things complicated, but there were a lot of mistakes that were made by the brass, right? Well, here it is. We have the Secretary of Defense. I mean, someone who just joined the military, who's only been in for a few months, knows better than this. And this is the top guy. They're doing this stuff on their private cell phones, right? You have a Secretary of Defense who has a reputation for being a drunk. And by the way, I just got to put this out here. When I said years ago that Trump is a national security threat, this is exactly what I was talking about. People, what do you mean he's a national? This is what I'm talking about. When you have someone who is so incompetent and someone who just has no respect for anyone, just only focused on himself, then he would hire incompetent people who would do things like this that put our troops in danger, put the country in danger, right? This is what I'm talking about, right? So anyone talking about, oh, we want to know about how this guy got on the list or whatever, I mean, that's a valid thing, but that's not the primary thing. And I want you to pay attention to how many right wingers who talk about this, who focus on either they talk about Hillary Clinton or they talk about another game they're going to play, right? They talk about, oh, a Signal app was on their computers. I don't know if that's true or not, right? But that would not be entirely relevant. And that would be something that, again, they're trying to manipulate you. Let me tell you how. The fact that the app might have been on their computers, if that's even true, is a whole different thing. The conversation about whether you should be using this app at all is a different conversation from how you use it. Case in point, if they're claiming that the Signal app was on their computers, those computers would be on a highly secured network, right? With a lot of safeguards to protect whatever communications you're having. It's not to say that those networks can't be hacked. That's why they have special areas that they can go to, which is an even higher level of security, blocking out, signals from the outside. But in general, those computers are going to be, highly secured. So using a Signal app on a government computer is no way close to using it on your personal computer. I'm sorry, your personal phone, which, by the way, and this is another thing I keep talking about, and people don't want to hear this, on your personal cell phone, which might have installed on it a Chinese app that Americans are so obsessed with because all we care about is attention on social media, right? This is another example of why I say that TikTok is also a national security threat. They like to talk about, oh, privacy data. That's valid, but that's not the biggest concern. Like, let's extrapolate. You have these people who possibly have this Chinese app on their phone, right? An app that the Chinese government has access to, right? And on that same device, which is their own personal phone, they're having top secret conversations on some third party app talking about their strike plans. This is once again why I talk about the issues with TikTok, right? The idea that a foreign country has an app running on phones that government officials have, that they can track them, potentially listen to their conversations, potentially maybe introduce a backdoor onto their phones and maybe monitoring them, sending this confidential information to other people talking about what they're gonna bomb and whatever. And then a guy who has a history of being a drunk, who is I mean, if I were an enemy of America, man, Pete Hegseth, I would have been so happy when they selected him. He's a prime target to go after and to, set him up in some way and get him compromised. The other thing is all these people that they're randomly firing without thinking about it. You have people maybe work for 30 years, done a great job, and then they get just fired, savagely just fired. Like, ooh, whatever, you're a probationary because they got a promotion or something. How many disgruntled people are we creating right now that are going to be prime targets for our enemies? Again, if I were an enemy of America, I would be very, very happy right now. All my agents would be all over me watching everything. Every time they do this firing or whatever, I would have my agents out there trying to turn these people that are frustrated. Oh my goodness. I dedicated so much of my life to this country. I was a veteran, and now I actually chose further service by working in the federal government trying to help other veterans. And then they just fire me like this, right? How many of these people in their frustration are vulnerable to potentially being turned by our enemies? When I say that Trump was a national security threat, this is what I was talking about. So just pay attention, right? Pay close attention to the people who want to talk about how this guy got on the list instead of talking about the fact that they were having these conversations at all on these apps. Um, People will want to play games. Another game they want to play is talk about how it's secure. And yes, Signal is a very secure app. The security that they use is pretty tight. However, when it comes to security, security is only as good as its weakest link. So if you have a phone, right, that you have some Chinese app running on, or who knows what else is running on there, and in general, it's just your personal phone. It's not up to the standard of like our government devices, right? And then you're using this highly secured app. Like the relevance of it being highly secured, not so relevant, right? Because if I'm actually on your personal phone watching everything you do, then what does it matter? Oh, it's highly secure. Like what? In theory, if their phones get compromised, because one of the big things about the security of these of the like Signal is that there's a private key that resides on the recipient's phone. So if Pete Hegseth sends a message to someone else in the government, the only way to decrypt that message is you need to have the key that's on the phone that the message was sent to. But if multiple phones that they're using, these are personal phones, have been compromised, then in theory, you could have those keys, which means you can decrypt the messages, which means you could be watching the whole thing, right? It doesn't matter how secure the app is if the person who's using the app is unsecure by using their personal device, by having an app on there that's connected to a foreign government. I think that's all I wanted to cover. So distractions about how we got added to the group, talking about it's a secure app. Oh, it's a secure. So that's how they try to hand wave away. Oh, it's a secure app. It's fine, right? These are tricks. They're playing tricks, right? This is a bad look. This is exactly what a lot of folks on the left were warning about. So they can't let that come out. They have to somehow downplay it and act like it's fine. And almost none of them are going to talk about how Elon and Trump think this is funny. Putting our troops in danger, they think is funny. So I was never on board with this suckers and losers quote that a lot of liberals love to talk about, right? I don't know if I saw official confirmation on that. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he said it, but I don't just jump on anything that's negative about Trump. Trump said suckers and losers are troops. Sounds like something he would say, so I'm gonna go repeat it. Yeah, he said suckers. No, I want to know for real, did he really say it? Right? Um, but here's another example that we could talk about the suckers and losers thing without actually having proof, or we could talk about something we do have proof of, which is Trump treating our soldiers like suckers and losers by thinking that it's funny for these text messages to get leaked. I forgot what the tweet was. There was some tweet between Elon and Trump that was kind of like lols, LOL, the typical MAGA, everything is funny, giggling, yeah, tee. So if you don't believe the suckers and losers thing, which again I never was on board with that because I didn't see enough proof of it, you can't ignore this, right? Trump legitimately, without any question, treated our soldiers as suckers and losers, right? us being sloppy with how we communicate is not something that is a moment of reflection and sort of like, oh my goodness, this is messed up. How did this happen? Like, let's prevent it. Like, taking it seriously. No, it's a haha, these liberals. Ha, you know. What's up, Sandy? I don't think Trump cares. They're trying to crush the United States from inside. I don't know about that, but they're certainly doing it. I don't know if that's the intention, but they're certainly doing that. Look at some of the idiots that are commenting on Bulwark and Jeffrey Goldberg. Yep, yeah, it's crazy. Engaged and enraged. What does suckers and losers have to do with this particular situation? I think I just explained it. I don't know if you typed that before I explained it. Um, but again, my point that I was making is I don't really care so much about the suckers and losers commentary because I didn't really see proof of it, even though it wouldn't surprise me. But here we see him in the open treating our soldiers like suckers and losers, right? I mean, to be the commander in chief and to not be absolutely furious in this moment, absolutely reflective and like, we're gonna get to the bottom of this and this is unacceptable and not on my watch, right? Where's the Trump with the Rambo body? Where's that guy? Trump is a beast, right? Where's that guy? Where's that brutal savage boss man? I mean, think about the idea of you are some big boss, you're a CEO, whatever, and such a screw up happens and heads aren't rolling, you're not out there like, oh my goodness, somebody's about to get fired, blah, blah, blah. Instead, you're laughing? Right. Anyway, this is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. That guy is an AI illusion, doesn't actually exist. Who's that guy? Anyway, let me get back to work. I don't believe the hype. Don't fall for it. Don't let these savages in right-wing media who are trying to save up some more money for another mansion, another BMW, at the cost of the country, at the cost of your family, at the cost of you, regular Americans. I don't think there's anyone in right-wing media that has any ounce of integrity. They've completely sold out their audience, sold out their ideology. They're in it with the billionaires club, the elites club, the 1% club. They are only focused on their fame and how much money and subscribers and clicks and likes. They don't see us, regular Americans, left-wing or right-wing, conservatives or liberals or progressives. The millionaires in right-wing media, they do not see us. All they see is green. I posted on community today, they had some fancy ball at Mar-a-Lago. All these rich people dancing around and having fun while the country burns.